rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our clerk happens to be excused this evening, so we need to appoint someone as temporary
I nominate
secretary
Kim
clerk.
Rice.
Second.
We have a nomination by trustee Houck, support by trustee Bills for Kim. Sorry,
Kim.
treasurer Rice.
Treasurer, right.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have the honor tonight. Thank you.
All right, not a problem.
We do have agenda, oh yeah, thank you. Would you do the roll call, please?
Sure. All right, Supervisor Milky.
Here.
Clerk Cody is excused. Treasurer Rice here. Trustee Bills. Here. Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee Houck.
Here.
Trustee Thering.
Here.
All right, all here except an excused Clerk Cody.
Fantastic. We have an agenda in front of us. I'm just going to throw out an idea. I'm open to any motions regarding this, but we do have our attorney here. If for any reason we wanted to move the section where that's more relevant, feel free to do so. Otherwise, that's fine as is too. Happy to take any motions regarding the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to move new business, am I saying that correct?
Item A, yeah.
To
Item E.
7.5, I don't know, call it, or,
7.5.
yep.
I'm second.
So the motion, just for clarity, was to approve the agenda with the moving 11A to 7.5.
Correct.
Support.
Any further discussion? We have a motion by Thering, support by Bills, to approve the agenda with the one change. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion to approve the agenda with one change passes. That brings us to presentations, of which we have none. Tonight we have no public hearings. So we do have public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to speak to the board or public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, all comments are limited to 3 minutes. With that, we'll open up public comment at 7:03 p.m.
Sorry about that.
So, you guys have made my evening a little shorter tonight, if you're gonna do a closed session, so my wife will appreciate that. Ben Gunning, 2270 East.
We're not doing a closed session.
Oh, you're not?
Not
Okay.
yet.
No, we're moving
not
it
planning
up.
Closed session.
Okay, all right, so, okay, gotcha, all right, wasn't sure it was David here.
Oh.
So, Ben Gunning, 2270 East Broomfield Road. Tonight, you guys get the privilege of appointing new members to the Planning Commission. Two of the members that are currently vacating their positions, Alex Fuller and Mike Darren, both held a lot of knowledge and were on that board for quite a long time. Both of them have project management background. They both understand development. Mike has a passion for pathways and sidewalks, which trying to watch the Planning Commission on volume number 95 on my TV, I caught most of the discussion. It was very interesting. But today, I read in the paper that it's the first time since 1900 that more people have died in Michigan than are being born. And Ohio also has the same statistic. And what they're saying is that the Economic Development Corporation of Michigan is telling municipalities that it's important now to try to encourage new industry in new municipalities and try to grow the population by bringing more people in. So when you're looking at who you want to appoint to these positions, I do think that when you look at the reasons why they want to be on the boards, I think you want to look for the positive. I think you want to look for people that accentuate the positive. What we don't need is somebody trying to police and restrict. What we need to have is people that want to encourage. And so I'm going to leave you at that. It's the privilege of the supervisor to make those nominations, but you are the ones that are firm. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll wait a minute, see if anybody else wants to come up for public comment. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment at 7:05, 7:06 PM. All right, that brings us to 7.5. Let me adjust my notes here.
New business.
All right, so this is new business item, introduction and first reading of the revised extraction ordinance. We've all seen this prior to now. This just is the potential first reading if we so choose. Do you have anything to add to this, Manager? And with that, I'm sure that you've all read through your packet and happy to entertain any motions.
I'll make a motion to approve. Oh, do I get it in front of me here? I'll make a motion to approve the introduction of and first reading of the revised extraction ordinance.
Support.
Motion by Hauk, support by Brown. With that, we have introduced and are conducting. Would you have any comments? Discussion?
I looked it over 3 or 4 times, and I like some of the changes that were made. I think that it's probably going to make the citizens, or the concerned citizens, I think it should make them happy. A lot of the issues that they had talked about have been addressed. We talked about reclamation a lot. That seems like that was addressed very well. Hours of operation were a concern. I think those have been addressed. They haven't really changed the hours of operation, but I think it's a good ordinance.
I think the hours are a little early, but I'm sure I'm not gonna sway that, so.
Yeah,
If I was the neighbor to one of them, I'd have a problem with it. At 7 AM.
I'm really happy with this. I know the previous board put a lot of work into this. And there's been a lot of work done since then to improve it. And I want to thank all those that were part of that. So I'm certainly in support of this.
Yep, I am too.
Any further comments? All right, well, we have conducted the introduction and the first reading of the new revised extraction ordinance. Last call, any comments? Moving on.
We have to vote.
Oh, yeah,
I
excuse
wonder
me.
if this should be a roll. does it
Roll,
have to be a
it is
call?
roll call, I believe, right?
Okay.
I figured it was enough that we did it, but
Because it's
thank you.
ordinance.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be.
Oh,
Whatever you
okay.
guys want to do.
Doesn't matter to me.
I don't think.
Just tell me what I'm doing.
If someone wants to call a roll call, are you calling roll call?
Nope.
All in favor of the motion to introduce and conduct the first reading for the revised extraction ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to, at least on the agenda, closed session, of which we have none at this point. Reports, boards, and comments. Current list of boards and commissions, appointments as needed. I did send the board an email today. We do have a number of applicants for the planning commission.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled that we have those. But as I indicated in the December meeting, I want to try to keep it open as long as we could to allow for additional applicants. March 15th is the board planning commission meeting that those vacating seats will be all open. And it'd be nice to complement the entire board at once. So with that, we do have an EDA application. We have 2 seats there. I've been pushing hard. Yes.
Quick question. I believe at the last meeting, our record 10-minute meeting that you and I were both not here at, did they table it or?
It was a discussion.
Okay, so they said it was gonna be at the next meeting, I thought. So I didn't know if we needed to do anything to rectify that or.
I don't know what you're talking about.
At the last meeting, both Supervisor Milky and I were both gone.
And so was man,
And, what was that?
so was Mr. Stooldryer.
Right, and they had brought up that they were going to discuss the candidates at the next meeting, so I just wanted to make sure we
Who's
didn't
they?
need, those that were here, that were present,
Board member.
yes.
Well, I think what we said was, we would wait until the supervisor was here.
Until
so-
everybody was back, yep.
Yeah,
Okay, I couldn't remember the wording, and so I wanted to make sure that we
Thank
were
you.
following what was discussed, so,
Right.
sorry.
oh,
Continue.
And I
sorry.
understand some being anxious. In December, when I mentioned trying to leave this period open, that I got nods and confirmation on
Yeah.
that. And I have been taking the liberty to interview, I've now interviewed every planning commissioner member except for one who I have set, and that's Mike Darren, who's on an exit interview with me coming up. I wanted to ask their thoughts on what voices are missing, what voices would be most helpful. I've also started interviewing our applicants as well. And I had hoped to get to another one today, but I did not. But so there's 2 that I have not reached out to yet and had personal conversations with. And I think that's been helpful for me to hear that input, both from our planning commissioners that exist and to hear from those that would like to serve.
I really appreciate you waiting and allowing other people to possibly apply, because we need the best talent possible.
I was approached by someone today. I was told to hold the name till they decide for the planning commission, so there may be another applicant coming.
Awesome.
So we'll see.
That's great to hear. We do have EDA. We have 1 application. In fact, I've really been beating on the EDA. I know Bill's been trying to help with that too. We have 2 seats, 1 expiring this month, I believe. I have to look at the calendar, but essentially, the next meeting will be without 2 members if we don't appoint any. We have a single applicant who's an existing member on the EDA. I'll leave it at that. It's not my job. I try not to make the motions if I can help it, if there is any to be made.
To fill,
Regarding the EDA.
to fill the slot? the
Yes.
position? Okay, I thought you had to appoint them, I'm sorry.
No, that's
For
only planning
PC.
commission.
Only just PC?
Yep,
Okay,
And I want to give this board the opportunity, if they so choose, we do have an applicant in my packet, I'm looking for it now, here we go.
Yeah, so am I.
Mr. Sarjeet Chowdhury, who serves on the EDA currently. If someone feels inclined to move on that, I'd be happy to entertain motion.
Yeah, I make a motion to reappoint, I'm gonna have to have help with this name, Sarjeet Chowdhury to the EDA board. Term ending, help me,
it's a,
1/20/26.
1/20/26.
second.
It's a 4-year deal.
Motion by Brown, support by Bills.
Yes.
Did I miss yours?
What's that?
I thought I heard you support too, but,
No,
Oh, okay.
I was asking the years. I didn't know it was a 4-year commitment.
yeah.
discussion.
I'm not gonna support that one. I've had calls from 3 different people on that EDA board, and I'm not gonna support it. That's all I'll say.
Others? Well, I made a comment before when we made an appointment. I try, I mean, we have a few board members that serve on multiple boards. You know, as a liaison, that's one thing. But it's nice to have a broader spectrum of our residents serving. We have had struggles filling the spot. But I struggle myself. Any other comments?
It's tough to get people to come forward. It really is. It is
Especially with
tough.
COVID. COVID's made it tough, and a lot of people I've talked to, I'll wait till after pandemic to,
It's not just our boards, it's our volunteer fire departments, it's everything. It is everything to get anybody to come forward to help, to support. Yeah, it's tough.
you know, the other issue the EDA has, it's an 11-member board, which means we need 6, I believe, for quorum. Do I have the number right, Mr. Nanny? Yeah. 6, and sometimes attendance is tough. It was much better during, when we were doing Zoom virtual meetings, because people would be in Florida and be able to serve remotely.
Felt safe.
So I think we might have some members down south even now, which makes that tough to get a quorum.
I saw another one today that, I guess I'm not gonna say anymore.
So this is the only application we have, though.
Correct.
I think we need to do it. I mean, not gonna just come out of thin air.
We might have more openings.
And
When?
I tried 2 of our planning commissioner applications.
You mean
I
if
don't
this
know what
guy
to say.
gets,
I really don't know what to tell you guys. I mean,
okay,
the conversations I've had, let's just put it this way, we may have more people that we need to appoint to this board, to the EDA. I don't know how else to say it and be kind.
Do we have any meetings coming up before, like, that we could give another
I think the
week or
next meeting
two,
is
or-
February
9th.
3rd, 9? Thank you.
The- Little
Okay.
clarity, the position you're discussing now, that term has in fact expired, and you will have, there's already been the January EDA meeting, I believe. So the next one is in February. The next board meeting, I believe, is February 9th.
yeah,
So, and the next EDA meeting is following that.
Okay.
That's just to give you the timeline.
So I would recommend, if the dates you just gave are accurate, we actually do have an additional board meeting to potentially get some additional applicants.
We have 2 seats open?
And
We have 2 open
forgive me for not realizing that. I thought I had checked that, and I must have miscalculated on that.
February 9th is the next Board of Trustee meeting.
Oh, 9th, yeah, I thought you meant EDA, yeah. February 9th is our next meeting. When's the next EDA meeting? 15th? We have one on the 9th.
right?
Okay.
I can make some calls, and probably get some people to,
So we have a motion on the floor. Hearing the information we just had, is people want to vote on that?
well, you have a motion, you have to vote.
No, you can withdraw
You
the
can
motion.
Oh,
withdraw it,
withdraw.
or
You
you
can
can,
withdraw the motion, you can vote, and your vote results will be either yes or no.
Yeah.
Or you can withdraw it and create additional flexibility for y'all.
Yeah, I make a motion to withdraw my motion, only because of time, not that I wouldn't vote yes for him, but I will withdraw the motion and to table it to the next meeting, trustee meeting on February 9th.
do you have to have support for that?
Yes.
I'll support that.
That'd be good. All right, well, that takes that action off the board. My apologies, I thought I'd done the math. And for what, maybe I was looking at the expiration date of the term in our meeting schedule, thinking it had already passed, so. All right, let's keep pounding those bushes then.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, if you do got some more people.
Well-
That'd be great, because we got 2 seats open there.
Okay, we have, what is it that we have open? We have
Two,
one.
we have 2 seats. Well, we have
EDA.
one
Do they have
term.
to
that-
own a business though? Don't they have to
No,
own?
No.
the new
Be a
bylaws of the EDA
All
do
right.
allow one member, I believe it's one member at large.
All right.
I'm getting a nod from Mr. Nanny. Was my memory at least. So we can do one member at large that's in the township.
All right,
So they don't have to live in the east or west in that case.
All right.
Nor do they have to have a business in the east or west. Does that help?
yeah, that's right.
Kind of opens it up a little bit more.
It does.
doesn't it?
But that's only true, I think, for the one seat. So the other one needs to come from the district in some fashion, whether they're a resident or a business owner.
I think I'll talk to a couple of people after this meeting, and I'll give them a couple of names, and I think if a couple of us call one of these guys, he'll probably do it. You and I both know. So
Okay, yeah. If I can be of any help, Bill, let
Yeah,
me know.
yeah.
I would love to
I
get
think
more
I
people.
could probably get a couple people to.
Good.
All right, my apologies for the confusion on that. That was my fault. I would have
No
waited
worries.
had I done the math correctly. So with that, any opposition to moving on?
Do we need to vote on it?
Nope, there's
Nope.
no
We're
action.
done.
No action, okay.
Monthly.
Oh, wait, they
Yes.
did make a motion.
There was a motion that was withdrawn.
Right, and then they made a new motion to table it to next week.
We did
What-
not
what-
vote on that.
Okay,
What has happened is there was a
Sorry.
motion made, there was a second.
Right.
The maker of the motion withdrew the motion, the supporter of the motion withdrew their support, so you have nothing to do.
okay.
All right,
Okay,
January
we're-
monthly activity report. I didn't get mine. Is that supposed to still come?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if I had missed it or.
No, it just wasn't gonna be in time for this packet.
Packet.
It hasn't been in time for tonight
Okay.
to have it.
I kind of figured that, but I wanted to make sure I hadn't just missed it in a separate email or something.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to item 9C on our agenda, Planning Commission, EDA Sidewalks and ZBA updates by our Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Nanny. Welcome, you have the floor.
Thank you. It was a busy month for our boards and commissions. This was also, as Art mentioned, their first meetings in person again with the end of the electronic meeting authority at the end of December. Starting off, we had a zoning board of appeals meeting on January 5th. This was essentially a continuation of the action item on their December meeting. They had a variance request in December. They had 4 members present. One member couldn't be there at the last minute. And the vote in December ended up being a tie vote, 2-2. Tie votes basically means the motion fails, so there's no action taken. They held it over to January with the hope of having the full board. Interestingly, the January meeting, they had again one member that had to be absent at the last minute, COVID-related absence, but this time, after extensive deliberation on the items, the Board of Appeals ended up voting in favor of the variance. So they did grant it as a setback variance related to an accessory building, a pole barn that was proposed. So that variance was approved. And a 3-1 vote that time. Talking about the EDA board, they met on the 18th. Our EDA board and our planning commission, as you probably know, are meeting at the Lincoln Reception Center. This is the banquet meeting room facility on the back of the Lux Funeral Home just down the street. It was a very nice room, very nice space. Allowed for these larger boards to have social distancing, allowed them to sit separated further apart, allowed the audience to be there and have plenty of room to spread out. And so the EDA board held the first meeting there on the 18th. They had 2 main business items. One was to review the bids for demolition of the obsolete office building at 5800 East Pickard. This is the building the East EDA district purchased last year. It's part to facilitate an update to a sewage pumping station facility that's there. but it also gave us a chance to take down this 1950s vintage house that had been converted into an office. It was really just functionally obsolete. So bids came in on that. The EDA reviewed those bids, and they did award that contract to McGurk Sand and Gravel. So that project is underway. We're right now in the process of asbestos abatement. They'll start demolition once that's done. There was a small amount of asbestos in the building. The other item that they're looking at was a first look at proposed grant programs for some business improvement type grants, specifically looking at beautification, pedestrian access, and signs. There are actually 6 categories in their implementation strategy for the districts. These are 3 of the categories, and these were the first 3 that they decided to look at. They reviewed kind of an outline of what a grant program might look like, what criteria might be involved, and provided direction on that. We'll be bringing back to them an updated final proposal for grant programs at their next meeting to go ahead and move that ahead so we can see if we can generate some potential projects in the east and the west DDA districts on that line. Those were the 2 main items on the EDA board. The Planning Commission also met on the 18th at the Lincoln Reception Center. Their main items on their agenda was our first planned unit development, at least first one under our current ordinance. It's called the Trustees Center. It's an assisted living facility on Broadway, just east of the freeway. It's an older facility, dates back to the 80s. The company has purchased it. They're looking to expand and also to add some other housing options on the site. So this was kind of an initial look for the Planning Commission, with the applicant the opportunity to make a presentation, kind of generate questions, and get some feedback from the commissioners about this idea. Commissioners, lots of good questions on it. At this point, the commission has postponed action on it. We are looking for updated plans. There are some things they need to do to meet the technical requirements of our PUD regulations. And also, they need to get some answers, some questions answered related to some utility infrastructure that goes across that site. So those things are in the process. We also had a zoning ordinance text amendment application. Dave Coyne is working with if you've seen Mr. Coyne's facilities, he has his solar arrays there. He is wanting to install one of these arrays in our township. All the ones he has right now are in the city of Mount Pleasant. Our ordinance has a 20-foot height limit for freestanding solar arrays. It happens that his array, the type that you see on his facility in Pickard, is 22.5 feet tall. So he submitted an application to raise that height to 25 feet. The Planning Commission will be holding a hearing on that in February. The January meeting was just to get an initial look at the proposed text amendment. That will be proceeding to a hearing next month. The other business item or application on the agenda was a very nice building addition, Graphic Central, which is a business facility over on Park Place, is proposing essentially to double their size. They put an addition on their building a few years ago, or not that long, actually just a couple of years ago, and they're growing very, very quickly, so they now proposing to double the size of that building. This was the final site plan application. They received a preliminary site plan approval back in November. The updated final site plan came back. It was a very simple review. They met every single requirement of our ordinance, and the Planning Commission approved it. No conditions, no concerns. Everything was in order for that. I understand they have submitted a building permit application for that as well. Then the last item on the Planning Commission's list was Parks and Recreation Plan update. This is a project that we're getting started with. The Commission was reviewing some potential survey questions that put together a survey of the community, and to also discuss, review the various goals. We have a number of recreation-related plans, both with the township and regionally, and so the Planning Commission is kind of reviewing all those various goals and objectives and looking at really where they wanted to focus their attention as part of this particular plan update. So a lot of discussion was generated from that as well. One additional item on your agenda, in your packet, you have a copy of the annual report, and I have to, from the Planning Commission, and I have to at this point apologize to Commissioner Lapp of the Planning Commission, because we inadvertently left her off of the list of people that attended remote training sessions. So it's on the second page of the report. I'm sorry, the third page of the report. We left it off the version with the Planning Commission. They noted it, added it in as part of their approval of it, and then I sent the wrong version to Tara to put in your packet. So please add Jessica Lapp to that list. First item under other items of business, she did attend the remote training. Happy to be able to highlight that. She's been a wonderful addition to the Planning Commission. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple. One is just lifting something up, I think, because I'm proud of being part of it, and that, I think I've voiced this before, but the EDA grants that you talked about, with the new charter, is that the proper terminology, charter, for the EDA?
You're talking about bylaws?
No, the new plan and,
Yes.
Development plan?
It would be a development plan and tax increment financing.
okay, and I guess I call it charter, because it's basically our charter to do what we set out to do, right? It gives us, it's a plan, and in any event, what the EDAs look like now compared to what they did just last year is very different. And that's the result of bringing a consultant and the hard work of Mr. Nanny and our EDA board being more forward-looking. And the ability to start offering grants to corporations to help with their properties is an amazing thing, I think. And some of the other things that we have as incentives in there include some helping with initial, you may be helping with the language in this, development of new sites, or a new site plan comes in, right? And they need a little bit of cushion to make it all work monetarily wise. We're able to help fund some of that and then recapture that later. So it's not a gift, but it's an assistance to inspiring development, right? Where cash flow is short. Is that an accurate description?
That is, it's a good description.
So, I mean, these are things I'm really excited about with the EDA that we didn't have as tools before. And so one of my questions to Mr. Nanny in the past, recently, was, hey, that money that we use from TIFA, can we use similar ideas through, say, general fund? And I don't know if you want to, I'm going to ask you that now anyways, even though I've already asked you that.
Well, the answer to that is unfortunately not. It's not the same. The downtown development authorities are a unique creature. Been given, they're semi-independent, and have been given this ability to function as that in-between space between government and private sector. But it truly is limited to the area, the districts they work within, and to the areas within which they have authority.
Which I didn't like that answer the first time. I was hoping it would be different this time. Because I was so excited about what the EDAs can do to help encourage development in those two districts. But I wish we had some of those same tools. On the parks plan, right now our current parks plan is expired, correct?
That's correct.
Which means we can't pursue grants, really. For the most part, we limit ourselves in grant pursual because we don't have a current parks plan. Is that accurate?
That's correct. It has expired for purposes of eligibility for Michigan Department of Natural Resources grant funding. The plan still is active,
Right.
it's still relevant, but it cannot be used for that particular program.
Yeah, so as a result of this process that Planning Commission is now undertaking, when we get to the end of that journey, the idea also is that we can use that to pursue additional grants for some of our parks.
That's
Correct.
correct.
And then lastly, on the annual report, this was fun to read. I'm glad you pointed out Jessica's name, because I did notice Tara and the chair, who's been on the board a long time and still taking training. Kudos to him. What I was surprised by, and maybe I shouldn't be, is there, as I counted it, 24 site plans approved through the process last year. Could you, how does that compare to the year previous? Do you know? off the top of your head?
Well, it was a busier year than the previous year. It
20 was tough. Right.
2020 was tough. It definitely was a busy year. One thing to keep in mind is that under our current zoning ordinance, we now have a preliminary site plan and a final site plan approval. So any project, think of the preliminary site plan like a concept plan approval. You don't have all the engineering in place, you haven't talked to the outside agencies, the county and other entities yet. So the plan commission gets a first look at it, which they did not get before. Before, the plan commission was the last person to look at the site plan. So in that sense, we have more or less doubled the number of site plan items that are on an agenda over what the old ordinance required, which was a one-step process. But we've also had a far better result from that, is that the plan commission has early influence on the character of that plan and has an early ability to give counsel to the applicant as to things that they're concerned about. So it's functioned very well. But overall, yes, 2021 was busier than 2020. I'm expecting, quite frankly, similar for the coming year. We've already had a lot of interest. I have, I think at this point, 6 or 7 projects that we are aware of that are various stages of development. They have not come in for review yet, but we've been told they're coming, and the group is very young yet.
Wonderful. When I served on the planning commission, often some of the bigger projects or more complex projects would come before the planning commission on their own, just to say, hey, here's what we're looking at. We want feedback now, because when we get to the final approval process, we want that to go smooth. And that always worked really well. So that's, I'm assuming that has worked well now, from what you're saying.
Yeah, we've essentially formalized that, right? And it has worked very well, too. I think that we've had good feedback from the applicants, from the plan commission as well. That people can, so the commissioners can see the plan at an earlier stage. It's easier for the applicant to make adjustments if needed, because they have not invested in all the engineering yet at that stage. And we do always have the option. Any applicant has the option to combine. There's a provision in the ordinance that they can propose to combine preliminary final. I think on that list you see a couple of them where they did that. In that circumstance, they have to meet the requirements for both preliminary and final. But it's certainly something, it's an option for anybody that wishes to pursue it.
So I would think that would, how do I put this? Mean that there are less disapprovals of SPRs ultimately, because they're pre-reviewed by staff and planning commission.
Yeah, our role, certainly our role as staff is to check the details. So we want to make sure that what comes to the plan commission is in a ready state for them to be able to make an informed decision. That doesn't mean that all the boxes are checked. There are a number of things in the ordinance where the plan commission has some discretion. They could have some ability to allow modifications, things like parking and landscaping and some other elements, where they truly have a decision that they need to make a judgment call. And so we try to make sure that the requirements are set, or at least they're set to a point where the plan commission can understand the plan. There's enough information there to make a decision. So that the plan commission can then focus on those most important things. What are the policy issues? What are the key items that they really need to be looking at and making a judgment on?
So how many were actually not approved then? Do you know?
There were no site plans that were denied. There certainly, I think in some of these cases there may have been plans that were postponed action. But I think even in that case, there were very few. In most cases, this is for the other benefit of the preliminary site plan process. The preliminary site plan approvals were often made with conditions. The planning commission would say, we would like you to fix this or adjust that. There would be 3 or 4 items on it. Then those things are taken care of when they come back for final site plan, which, like the Graphic Central project, things go through very quickly, or with minimal conditions, things like housekeeping items, like we're waiting for approval from the County Transportation Commission or something like that. We just need that documentation. So it smooths the process out significantly.
Good, thanks. Sorry to pick on you so much. I just really curious, because I've since left the planning commission, and it's kind of still near and dear to my heart. So, any other questions for our director? Sorry, I talked too much, guys.
No, you just asked all the questions.
All right, thank you very much. I talked too much, my computer went to sleep. With that, we'll go to board member reports. Trustee Brown.
None today.
Trustee Bills?
I've got nothing today.
Trustee Thering?
Yes, at the planning commission meeting on the 26th, we had Jeremy McDonald with the Sidewalk and Pathways Committee talk, and Mike Darren actually also spoke as well. Both of them were talking about the projects that we have that are priority projects that we're just not able to complete. And that's, very concerning. They're putting the time and the effort in, and we make a little bit of headway, maybe a little bit here and a little bit there. They'd like to see possibly figuring out a better way to go to business. Maybe pick a project, and if it takes every dime that's allotted to that committee, to the sidewalk and pathway prioritization, to complete one thing, that would be a win. Both of them talked about, maybe we need 2 ideas here, just anything to get the ball rolling, is maybe to offer to pay more, to encourage them to give easements to allow us to complete the sidewalks, especially some of those areas on Bluegrass. And the other thing too was, Mike had mentioned to look into potential snow removal equipment for the township to do, and/or subcontracting it out as another incentive to say, hey, we'll put in the sidewalk, or we'll do a big portion of the sidewalk and we'll take care of the snow removal. Kind of like what we're doing here on Pickard. So, I just, they're looking for help. And as you know, you're on that committee too. So they're looking to us, they're at the point where, we would like your help. So I encourage you to watch the few minutes that they spoke in the beginning of the planning commission meeting. You can go back on the 26th and watch that. He really did a better job than I am of explaining what I feel needs to be done. They need our help to move things forward. So, I don't want to let this go. I'd rather come back and say, well, we're not gonna do anything, rather than just to say something and everybody walk away. I prefer to come back and say, hey, here's a plan. What do you think? And maybe get some of these projects done. And I know it's a priority to everybody, but again, we're kind of at a standstill in certain areas, so.
Are we, every time we, are you talking just about sidewalks right now?
Yep, that's what I'm
I
talking
mean, every time we ask, the manager says that it's at some stage, and it's never gone forward, it doesn't go forward.
Well, I think just in talking, in them speaking, they're saying maybe we could help Mr. Stuhl Dryer or whomever is kind of overseeing that, to say, is it feasible, if we offered a little bit more, or can we do this? Can we do snow removal to a project to complete?
I agree, I've brought that up before too, that we pay 100% and do maintenance, yeah.
Yep.
It's not getting done.
Well, we have to make sure that if we paid 100%, that we have the money to complete it as well. It isn't, it's the right idea, but you only have so many funds allotted
Right.
every year. So we want to make sure that we spend these monies, in my opinion.
I don't think it's
So-
been spent on sidewalks in 5 years. I don't even know, how much do we have in sidewalks, Mr. Stuhl Dryer?
How much,
Money? I mean, we still have
how
a lot
much
of.
money do we
In
have
the reserve-
budgeted in
yeah.
FY 2022?
Yeah,
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
that's what I thought, like around 300,000.
In the general fund, it's like $250,000, right, I think?
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean,
the
across the organization.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
EDA has quite a bit of skin in that game, too.
So what I'd like to see is the rest of the trustees just take a look at that, and maybe that's something we can discuss again, and maybe work with Supervisor Milky and Manager Stuhl Dryer, and maybe coming up with some ideas. And you may have some ideas as well, right off the bat, but to try to get some of these projects completed.
So, help me understand better. what I'm sensing, there's a frustration that we're ready to move on stuff, but hurdles keep getting in the way, right? So
Yeah.
what are those
There-
hurdles? Easements, I'm
I
assuming
believe
is,
easements are one. I think that was really what was talked about more. And they, basically, what I saw is he just took a step back and didn't really put the finger on, this is the problem, and just saying, you know, we have a priority project here and one here and maybe one here. And everybody's doing their best to try to get it completed, but we're not. So what narrative can we change that might potentially change that?
right,
Jeremy talked about maybe giving more funds, not necessarily 100%, but maybe 100%, if we have the funds to do that. Mike Darren gave the idea of, you know, is it feasible for the township, rather than to subcontract snow removal, to maybe buy their own equipment and have somebody that's dedicated to do that through the winter months? Or is it not really feasible for the township? Is it better off to subcontract that? And then put that in a package to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit, to make people go, you know what, okay, I can get into that then. Because for the greater good, it serves the purpose that we need it to, especially, you know, on the bluegrass. So,
right. Now, I guess from my perspective, the committee doesn't really have fiscal powers. They could recommend to the Board of Trustees if they so chose something.
That
But
was
yeah,
done.
Yeah,
And the
they-
board actually authorized 100%. That, I brought that letter up
but I don't think they
when I
have,
first came on the board.
I don't think they have monies that they can just negotiate with outside
I
of.
think they're looking to us to look
Right.
to those that do that.
So I guess what I'm saying is the ball in our court from your perspective, that if we wanted to have a discussion, how important is this? And if it's important enough, how creative do we get?
Well, I think it's very important.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm asking, is that?
Yes,
the-
Right.
that's how I took it, and I agreed that, you know, let's ask manager Stool Dryer to maybe, you know, if all of you would think that would be a good step forward, let's just start heading in the right direction, and hopefully we get to where we want to be.
Is it reasonable to say that the board can ask our manager the question to produce some information for us so we better understand?
He's already done that last, didn't you do
We
that
haven't gone
last?
in
You
detail.
wrote it all
though.
down.
I mean, I think some of the things, some of the ideas that you're indicating, like snow removal.
Yeah.
What does that mean to our budget?
Right.
Adding staff, adding equipment.
Right.
Those kinds of things I think we're not prepared to answer tonight, obviously.
No, and I
Um,
wouldn't, I'm not asking that, but.
Maybe we ought to have a discussion in the near future, us, and just say, how important is this? How much do we want to invest or ask our manager to invest in understanding the problem better? Or articulating it to us? Do you have a feeling for, would that be a lot of work on you?
The
currently?
Sidewalk and Pathway Committee is advisory in nature. They have made the board and us aware of what their priorities are. There's a list of them. Trustee Thering has been focusing, I believe, on one priority, which is bluegrass, but the the Sidewalk Pathway Committee has several priorities. And the funding to put in sidewalks that are, some are priorities of the Sidewalk Pathway Committee. Some of the sidewalk location is a priority of West EDA. Some of those priorities overlap, and there is probably over $500,000 when you go across the whole organization to put in sidewalks. The problem that we've been running into is administratively being able to put the time in so that they get designed, bid, and constructed. And that is changing, and I think you'll see those results in 2022. So that's my comment there. If the discussion is specifics on say, bluegrass, or, bluegrass, I think is what you were talking about.
It was just.
There's some gaps
Yeah.
there, and there's some long stretches, and we all know the history, and, the debate often comes down to this fear, I think, of, in the past, some property owners helped foot the bill, and currently, the current property owners where there's gaps don't want to help foot the bill, so we talk about incentives, which is what you're talking about. And, they've turned down incentives in the past to have various cost share proposals. So what I've been talking about lately, and you've heard it, is if you really want it, you're going to have to pay for it if you want the sidewalks. And that creates some angst among the elected officials because of how property owners 10 or 15 years ago were handled. And this idea that if a property owner 15 years ago had a cost share to put in the sidewalk and then one today does not, is that equitable? And that's been kind of the hang-up. So whether you incentivize it for those property owners with snow plowing or what, conceptually, you're still running into the same thing. And that's a tough nut to crack because they're all, because it's all related to easements over there on bluegrass. And so, that one's going to be a longer, more difficult project. We're working on it, but we have miles of sidewalk around the township that are also priorities of theirs and others that we have funding, and have had funding for in the last couple of years. The problem has been being able to put the project management horsepower, if you will, onto the project. And we think we can address some of that in 2022. What we haven't recommended yet to the board is to really jumpstart it. We asked for funding to pay a certain amount of money to a project manager, bring him in from the outside, so we're not taking the time from existing staff. That's how you deal with that. And so that's where we are. I think, again, I'll emphasize the role of the Sidewalk Committee as advisory. It's a tough committee. They don't have any funding. And so they do their work, and then they run into the practical realities, funding, resources to, because it takes money to spend money, right? You give the township $10 million and we couldn't spend that, without hiring a lot of people to do it, to actually execute the programs. So, but we know it's a priority for 2022. And, we talked about the budget development, so I think we're all on the same page. If you want to get into a specific called bluegrass, and you want specific information related to that, I don't have that available to me right now. But that's kind of what the bigger picture is. And so we know the priority, we know the ends. Those have been influenced by the advice from the Sidewalk Committee, and we're trying to execute it.
Wasn't trying to take away from any other projects they had on their list. That was just a reference, so I thought I would just reference it as well. I think bottom line is they were just, and there was, Jeremy and Mike, they weren't up there, complaining. They were just talking about trying to see what we could do to.
They need something so that they feel that the work that they're doing is having effect.
Yes. Yeah, they're,
That's what they're wanting.
yeah, they're getting frustrated because they've put all this time in and they're like, I don't see it. And they want to see it, even though things have been happening. They
And
just
they don't have the
yeah,
power or the authority to
right,
make it happen.
exactly.
Right.
And so
And
they
that's,
they
just the nature of the
yeah.
committee.
yep. So
That's good,
Okay.
good to spend some time thinking on.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth the look to watch that and maybe at some point have further discussion, or as Manager Stool Dryer has information for us, it might spark a different conversation we as a board can maybe give direction to based on a recommendation.
The idea, your policy of sidewalk installation around the township, that is making, and has been, you end up putting miles and miles of sidewalk that get put into the township every year. And that gets reported to you in your annual report. I forget what the number was, but, there's miles of sidewalk that get installed one way or the other, so your goal, as articulated through your ends, is being advanced. What we're talking about is, should we be advancing spot A or spot B or spot C or D? But know that sidewalks, there are more sidewalks in the township than there were 2 years ago. And there will be at the end of this year, even if you don't touch bluegrass.
Right, Union, right here. West,
You know,
yeah,
so-
this,
Yeah, I think
That's where we're at.
it's been over a decade since money was first put in by one of our boards, Board of Trustees. I think it was 2009 or 2010 for that bluegrass area. They had all the funds to do all of that with matching property owners. And when I ran for the first time in 2012, that was one of my priorities, is because I knew someone was going to get killed there. And it was a priority, and still to this day, we have those gaps. And I know I've been involved in trying to get easements back then. Recently, it takes, and I think this is what our manager's speaking to, it takes a lot of time and energy to make all that come to pass. And it's frustrating.
We want an easement. You have the property. We'd like an easement, please. We'll incentivize you by paying 25% of the installation of the sidewalk in exchange for granting the easement. Sounds good, but we're still asking you to pay 75%.
well, and you went as high as 50, right?
I don't know what. the
Yeah.
exact-
We did at one point,
Yeah.
trying to fill some of those gaps.
I think it
on
should have been
bluegrass.
100% across the board. We didn't have the right to have an easement. We took that, the road commission took that away.
And without the easement, even
Yeah.
if we have the money and we want to spend it, we can't because it's private property.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was a
That
lot.
gets into that bigger question of how much right-of-way and all that business with the road commission.
Well, James, thanks for that. Anything else?
Oh, I'm good. I think they got us somewhere.
Treasurer Rice?
So I was unable to be at the combined PC and Sidewalk and Pathways meeting. You heard about it from Daring and from Mr. Nanny. But I did watch the video, and there was a spot that troubled me, and I need to bring it up, only because it's something that we as a board need to be aware of. I'm not naming names. That's not the point. The point is that in a meeting, if you go to speak at a meeting, you need to make sure it's clear if you are speaking as a board member or if you are speaking as a resident. We want to make sure that when we're talking to people, whether it's at a meeting or elsewhere, that they're aware if this is your opinion or if this is the board's opinion. That was unclear at one point in the meeting. So I just want everybody to just think about it, and when you speak somewhere, whether it's with an individual or at a meeting, make sure it is very clear if you're speaking as your opinion or as, you know, this is our opinion as a board. Okay? That was all. That was the only thing. Yeah. So.
That is part of our policy governance. All of that
Yes.
is that, you know, it helps reduce confusion
Yeah.
that can potentially cause
Right.
additional confusion. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Howe?
I'll admit I was that person.
I wasn't going to
Okay.
say anything.
I
That is not the point.
know. That's been addressed. I sent an email
Yeah.
to them.
Yep.
I had 2 meetings, January 13th. I went to the road commission meeting. They appointed a chairman. This was their first annual meeting. Terry Turnwald was appointed chairman. John Graham was appointed vice chairman. Jolene Sweet was appointed clerk. They approved a box culvert for a project that happened out on Loomis Road during the flood, so they're still dealing with issues from the flood. They said this should be one of the last projects that they have to do in regards to the flood from 2017. That was about a $400,000 project. They said they're having problems, as everybody is, they're having problems getting truck parts. One of the major discussions was funding for electric vehicles, road funding for electric vehicles. They pay no fuel tax, so there's things being talked about. How are they gonna tax people with electric vehicles? They're still using the roads. So there's a lot of talk about that, and I'm sure that we'll hear more in the future of possible ways to do it. They talked about higher registration fees, special hookups where if a car is hooked up to your electricity at your house, you'll be taxed more on that. So it's quite a deal. And then there was some discussion about the Lincoln and Broomfield Road project, which I'm not sure if Mark will be talking about that. Last Wednesday night, I went to a Council of Governments meeting out in Denver Township, their Township Hall. Nicole Frost was introduced. Nicole is the new county administrator. She got up and talked about a few things. The main thing she talked about, getting a lot of questions on the recycling center. Currently, the recycling center is costing the county around $400,000 a year. It's in the red, $400,000 a year that it's costing the county to keep it open.
Don't they get a DNR grant?
No, I'm not sure.
They did.
I know
They
she
used
said
to.
that it's costing the,
Okay.
I don't know, nobody asked those questions, whether there were any grants or anything. There was a question about what happens with the old jail when the new jail gets torn down, or built. The old jail is figured in that price. The old jail will be torn down, and there will be a sheriff's office put there somewhere. Because the sheriff has to have an office at the county seat. So there will be a sheriff's office. It might be a small office, she said, but there will be an office attached to the county building. Well, that's all I have.
So on the electric vehicles, is the purpose of the road commission discussing that? I mean, I get the problem. I think you articulated that well. Obviously, they're not the ones that are going to solve this. That's our governor and legislature. So are they having the discussions at the board level primarily so they can
Funding.
figure out how to explain it to their lobbyists? Or, I mean, what is the purpose of? them spending time on
They're
that?
just starting to talk about it, so I
Okay.
have no idea. There's supposed to be some big meeting that some of them were going to. They probably already went to it. Maybe it was last week. I'm not even sure when the meeting was. But it's not just, it's nationwide, so
Right? Well,
I'm not sure what's gonna happen with it.
I was just curious, because that's really not in their wheelhouse. They're the recipient of that, and I hope our legislature and governor, it's on their radar right for them.
I'm sure
Because
they
it's
will.
a real issue.
When it boils down to it, it's their funding. I mean, they need the money to keep our roads going. So probably, that's gotta be why they're talking about it at their local board levels.
Right?
I'm sure all 83 counties in Michigan are talking about it.
Well, I hope our legislature doesn't decide car registration. We're already the most expensive in the country, so.
They're
I
gonna have to
hope
do
they come,
something.
no, I agree. I hope they look at other ways. So on the Lincoln Road, did they respond at all or talk, they talked about the questions we had, and did they respond to that at all?
I kind of kept my mouth shut on that because I was getting a lot of questions like, what do you mean you don't understand? I'm not going to say anything more about it. Mark may address that. I don't know if we're still going to have a meeting with them or what's going on.
Were you at that meeting?
No.
I was not, but if this is the appropriate time, I
Yeah.
do
Well, I'm
quickly.
curious as
I
to
think it would be,
the
Mark.
status of that.
I don't want to say something.
I was not at the
Trouble.
meeting, so I'm not going to speak to the meeting,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the road commission administrator, myself, and Rodney and Kim are meeting tomorrow. The questions did go to the administrator over at the road commission, and him and I have spoke, and we have a meeting scheduled so that he can begin to inform me about responses to the questions that were posed, and then I'll figure out what we want to do next and how we do that. But I need to have some information, because I don't want them to come here blind. I don't want us blinded. So I want a little information from them. And I would anticipate somewhere down the road that they will come here and answer your questions, or they will provide written responses to the questions, or they'll respond to me and I'll respond to you. But one way or the other, your questions are going to get answered. And, the charge from the board right now is that they would like somebody from the road commission, whether it's chief administrative officer, I guess, or anybody, to come speak to the board. And I recognize that. I've communicated that to their administrator. And I think I'll know a lot more tomorrow after our meeting.
Awesome.
I hope it's in person, because I'm sure the questions that were submitted, as we hear answers, that will spurn additional
Follow-up
questions. And this could be really dragged out, or instead of having one conversation about it.
These things have been talked about since 2015, so,
But not by this board.
well, not by this board, but 2 previous boards knew about it. So, I mean, when the bridge got approved to be put in, there was talk about doing improvements on both ends. So, we can't say that it was just put out there in the last 2 or 3 years.
I think that's part of the issue I have, is it was 5 years ago, and it's $500,000 we haven't been able to, that we've had earmarked. And I just want to make sure I understand that our taxpayers are getting bang for their buck on $500,000. That's a lot of money to this township.
It's a very innocent, basic request. Doesn't need to become a big deal.
Right.
Exactly.
Professional courtesies, we'll handle a little bit at the administrative level.
Right.
The board has asked for somebody from the road commission to come. It's not unreasonable. I go to other meetings, and probably you do too, and you talk to these people at the meetings, and it has been a while, and we have new board members, we have existing older board members that, been 5 years or 6 years, and it's just, we could have written a letter on county letterhead, or on township letterhead, signed by the supervisor, sent to the road commission chair, if you really wanted to make a point, but, we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it was just a professional administrator to administrator communication, and if it's, I fully expect, because you're asking, that they'll be there, that somebody will be here. You're an elected body, you're due that courtesy, and I'm sure they'll honor that courtesy.
Good.
Kim Smith was at that meeting, and Kim explained it to him. Kim did a good job.
Okay, good.
So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Both of you.
Yep.
Bill, you were done?
Yep.
Let's see. I missed both the Board of Trustees meeting and the EDA, which just followed the Board of Trustees meeting, with COVID in my family. So I'm glad to say that my family's healthy again, so.
Good.
Yes. So other than that, I don't really have anything else to report. So that moves us on to consent agenda, item 10 on the agenda. Happy to entertain any motions here, and I have to ask who had warrants this month?
I did.
Trustee Bills.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Bills, support by Rice. So any issues with the warrants?
No, everything looked perfect.
Any further discussion, issues with the minutes, or
No.
anything? Not seeing much. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to pass the consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 11, new business, of which we already took care of item A back at 7.5. So that brings us to item B, policy governance 2.1, treatment of consumers. This is more the one that's directed to our managers, so if you'd like to introduce this, I'd be happy to hand it off to you.
Thank you. The governance policy 2.1 is titled Treatment of Consumers. This is an opportunity for the Board of Trustees to review the managers and the management team's compliance with governance policy 2.1. The policy wording, it says, with respect to interactions with consumers or those applying to be consumers, the township shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, or decisions that are unsafe, undignified, unclear, unprofessional, indirect, untimely, inaccurate, or unnecessarily intrusive. There are some further sub-policies that I won't read, but they get into things like don't collect any more information than is needed. The information that you do protect, make sure it's appropriately protected. If we need social security numbers, we need a way to make sure those are protected, those kinds of things. So you get into the sub-policy wording on some of that. I'm not going to go, you all have read that, I think. I interpret that this policy to be that the board wants to ensure that we're only eliciting or soliciting information necessary, only that information that's necessary for us to do our job. And there are some legal, requirements as that as well. But we don't need extraneous information. We shouldn't be asking for it. And if the information that we do, subject to FOIA and all the normal things, that we're giving it adequate protection and safeguards within things like computer systems and filing exercises. And then the other, as you read through the full policy, the other kind of interpretation of this policy is that the consumers need to have a clear understanding of what is being requested of them and why, and that if they don't, that there's a mechanism for them to gain that understanding. So that's how I interpret the policy that's in the policy governance manual. And, you know, the justification is that because what we're trying to do is balance needs. We have needs as a service provider, and so we have to solicit certain information. And the public has a right to expect certain things, so we need to balance those things, and that's what I'm trying to do in terms of justifying the interpretation. And there's some data available to you in the report. I'll run through a couple of those real quick. We do review applications annually, making sure that they remain relevant and that they're updated. We updated quite a few applications. For instance, when the new zoning ordinance was adopted, the old applications weren't going to satisfy either the consumer or the administration's needs. We try to keep the website pretty current on what types of services are available. Application forms are available. We're moving more and more towards fillable applications on the website. All our ordinances are available via the website, and we have links in various places on the website so that if somebody wants to know what the requirements are to put a water lead in, you know, we reference that in maybe a frequently asked question area. Then there's the link so they can just go read the ordinance themselves. And you know, even down to, you know, all our rates are on the website. The fees that were approved by the board as part of your budget are on the website. The quarterly rates for water and sewer are all on the website. There's service change forms on the website, address change forms. We have multiple billing options available to the citizens. In terms of trying to make sure the customers and consumers are serviced. If our operations require 24/7 monitoring, we're doing that. And then when we have things, say there's a water main break even in the middle of the day, depending on the service area impacted, we'll even go door to door to hand deliver the notification of the boil water advisory. So if we have the capacity to get down to that level of service, one-on-one essentially, we do that. If the footprint's too big, we may have to just run around and hang them on doors or that kind of thing. We did have to reduce our office hours a bit. You know, the public has a reasonable expectation to know when they can come in here and when it's open and closed and all that kind of thing. And even getting into early 2021, we were still kind of bouncing around with COVID enough that the rules of entry were still kind of, I mean, we'd post them, but they were they could change monthly at different points. So based on that data and my interpretation of the policy, I'll suggest that we are in compliance with the policy. I'd be happy to get any input from you guys.
One thing I like is with treatment of customers, you know, when you're in here, I like the cross-training that's gone on in here, you know? I mean, I've been in here where Tara hasn't been here, and Amy's gone up and taken care of stuff, vice versa. You know, and another thing, when you talk about, just say boil water advisories, when we had the water main break down here on McDonald Drive, I went down there and I saw a couple of the guys, you know, they're going around talking to all the neighbors, asking if they wanted to go to bottled water, just really good. I mean, They did a good job that day. So I think our treatment of customers is pretty good.
I'll second what trustee Hauk just said.
Yeah.
Any other comments before we go through this?
I think the manager and the staff have done a superior job. Superior. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, one thing our manager likes to do when we pat him on the back is make sure that the staff is recognized because
Absolutely.
Mark is just the head, but it doesn't happen without all the great people that we have serving this township.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tara. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Tara's the best.
So with that, report was submitted when due.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you agree and understand the interpretation by our manager?
Yes.
Nothing missing there?
No.
Interpretation justified or is proof provided to explain why the interpretation is reasonable?
Yes.
I guess I just asked the other question, is there anything missing? Does the data show compliance with the manager's interpretation of our policy?
Yes.
I think our manager just articulated that pretty well, and I think we're all pretty grateful for some of the
Extras.
services that we see and performed in excellent regard for our consumers, our residents, businesses. Always strive for greatness, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings to item 11C, 3.1, governing style. This is more on us. So this is an inward look at the board. Oh, forgive me, grabbed the wrong piece of paper. So attached in our packet, I guess if you look at the high governing style, it really is kind of the highlight. It's the top level look at our governance policy, section 3. Talks about governing outward vision, we don't want to micromanage, et cetera, et cetera. But the last 2 pages of our packet is the actual I guess it's a page and a tenth. The actual language of the governing style. I hope all of you read through that. And with that, I guess, I'm going to ask these questions. If you have additional comments, just related in general, I'll be happy to hear them too. Do you believe this board is in strict compliance with the policy as stated?
Yes.
Yes.
Bear with me 1 minute. The one thing I felt we don't fully comply with is the very last section of the policy governance. The board will monitor and discuss the board's process and performance at each meeting. I don't think that's always, unless that's referring to us going through governance policy itself like we are now, going through various sections. We do that once a month. I'm not sure we practice that at every meeting. And I don't know if it would be wise to every time. Sometimes our docket is pretty full. We have long meetings and I think we need to be conscious of it, but I don't think we do that at every meeting. Unless I'm interpreting it wrong, and do others interpret that differently?
I guess I kind of looked at it as like internally processing myself kind of thing and how I feel I am doing kind of thing with that. Not necessarily out in the middle of an open meeting, but just looking back on it.
Right. I guess I picked on this because it says the board will monitor. It doesn't say each board member shall. Right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
honestly, I think we tried to do that every single meeting, we'd be running into some long meetings. I mean,
But that was
Longer.
my point.
I think it's not needed, but I'm not a policy governance expert or anything like that, so.
Okay, well, when I read this, I think you said it really well, trustee Bills. As I read it, I thought, that's a good thing in theory, but I don't know if it is in practice. And maybe I need to understand it and think about it more, but maybe when we look at policy governance again, as a whole, we revisit this and see if this is something needed, or does it need a minor change? Is that reasonable?
Yes.
And I'm not suggesting anything today, but that was the one thing that stood out for me in this, so.
Yeah, I was looking more at the second sentence, the self-monitoring, that kind of thing, rather
Okay,
than
right.
the, monitoring at every single board meeting, so.
So I wouldn't say are we in strict compliance? I'm gonna have to say no. Are we in compliance? I would say yes, if that makes sense. Any other comments on that? I think I just indicated why I felt, we might be in the gray area there. I guess I kind of asked this question as well, how could we improve the process to be in full compliance? I think at this point, let's just revisit this again as we,
We may find after discussion that we really feel like we are. where we
right?
need to
Well,
be, so.
that's why I wanted to let this sit, but.
I personally think this is a pretty disciplined board. We do our homework, and we come prepared, and we come all the time to the meetings. You don't see half a board. So, I mean, we're
Are you
doing,
picking on me because I missed the last meeting?
yes.
Me too. And here she was wanting to change till Thursday, and she's at every
Yeah.
one in January.
Trustee Bills, I'm very sorry for interrupting. I just couldn't help
That's
it.
all yeah. I think we do, I think we've all made a good effort, I think we all really do. And I think we all really like working with each other, and we do work well together. That's all I know. That's all I know.
Anything else from anyone? There's no objection, we'll move on to extended public comment. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is an opportunity for comments only. Questions of boards will not be answered at this time. If you do choose to speak to the public and/or the board, please state your name and address for the record. And we'll open up extended public comment at 8:27 PM.
Somebody's got to speak at these things.
Thank you.
So Ben Gunning, 2270 East Brookfield Road. Three things. The joint meeting of the Sidewalks and Pathways Committee and the Planning Commission. That was an incredibly informative meeting. I tried to watch it. It was painful. You couldn't hear a thing. The production quality was horrid. You heard voices over here. And then the battery ran out. So I think that the production quality needs to be improved. You guys are gonna be using that room for planning commission. You gotta do something about getting some Mr. Microphones for everybody or something, but there needs to be better production quality. And comments made earlier about that, I'm gonna cut Trustee Houck a lot of slack, because
Deserve it.
the only reason why those things happen is because he's passionate,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, he doesn't miss a single solitary meeting. This is what, 6 years straight almost without missing a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah? And, when there's a water main break, when some resident needs help, who's the first person there? So, kudos to Trustee Houck as far as I'm concerned. And I guess number three is nitpicky, but I notice it all the time on the videos, and I notice it this evening, is you shouldn't be looking at your phone. Turn off your phone, put it in your jacket pocket. Don't answer text messages, because as far as I know, that's not legal. from the state of Michigan and their laws as far as open meetings, you can't be looking at your phone. So I don't know if that's been expressed or not. But otherwise, good meeting. And I do wish that more than Trustee Hauk was at that meeting, because I found that meeting the most informative meeting I've heard as far as sidewalks. You know, in all the years I've been watching meetings, and as Supervisor Milton knows, I've watched an awful lot of meetings.
Kudos.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda, the manager's comments.
Gotta
Mr.
close yet.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you, thank you. Keep me in check tonight.
Somebody's got
Rusty missing that last meeting. Anybody else for extended public comment? Thank you for your comments, and we'll see extended public comment closed at 8:30 PM. That moves us, thank you, to manager's comments, item 13 on the agenda. You have the floor.
Thank you, and I'll just take just a minute. This is the second meeting we've had in January. I missed the first meeting in January, the first meeting of the new year. So I just want to say, I'm looking forward to 2022. I know the staff is. We're excited about continuing to try to execute and implement the policies that this board has articulated. So we're looking forward to that. I was on vacation 2 weeks ago. Kim Smith was acting township manager. She did a very good job during that week. There was a COVID wave that came through the building and some other, kind of unusual things. She handled very well. Luckily, she was here for probably the shortest meeting and, So, anyways, we're looking forward to 2022. And then for those that know me or know me for a while, I tend to take most of my vacation in the winter. So I will be on vacation again next week, up into the western Upper Peninsula and northern Wisconsin. So that's where I'll be next week. Ms. Smith will also be acting township manager at that point. We do have two people that are in the succession plan, Ms. Smith and Ms. Teal. Ms. Teal is working on trying to get in for some knee surgery. She was scheduled originally for the 26th, so she was going to be out, so we assigned Kim, because normally I rotate. But then that surgery was canceled, and rather than trying to keep up with the doctors, Kim is going to be acting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Final board member comments. I started with Trustee Brown on board reports, so let's start over with Trustee Hauk.
All right. Last Wednesday night, I went to a planning commission meeting. I am sorry for some of the comments I made. I was acting as a citizen at first, and then at my last comment, I did make a comment that we, as a board, we're going to be selecting new people for that board, and I probably shouldn't have said what I said. So I sent an email out to the planning commission and explained everything. All right. Second thing I wanted to talk about is, I've talked to a few people in here. We talked about possibly doing another park down on the southeast end of town, down by, everybody knows about this. I don't know what we can do to get going on that, but if it's like everything else, let's get going on it. Let's figure out some ways that we can start looking for funding. Let's get some engineering done out there, site plan, whatever. Let's start doing something with it. If we all are interested in it, maybe we need to bring it to a vote. Yes, we haven't done that officially. Maybe we need to bring that to a vote, but I was talking to one of the planning commission members, and he said him and his wife like to ride bike up and down there. They have nowhere to park, so they always park at the one of the apartment complexes. Well, how do we know that the people at that own the apartment complexes want citizens parking there that aren't owners, or aren't renters of theirs? So I just wondered if we could get going on that, of what we need to do, Mark, if we need to, first of all, I guess we need to decide if we want to do it as a board. We need to bring it to a motion, I guess, I don't know. Bring the project forward.
It'd have to be an agenda item, right, wouldn't it?
I would think that we'd have to put it on the agenda. And the third thing that I wanted to talk about was 2% requests. I'm sure some of those are gonna need to be coming up pretty soon. And I know I had mentioned it last time when we received no funds the last time. I think we need to watch what we're asking for. Some of the stuff that we ask for is infrastructure that is routine maintenance that we should be paying for with the funds that we collect from sewer and water. So it sounds to me like they like new projects. So I'm sure you know more about that, Trustee Bills, than I do. But I think we need to, I don't know if we have a prioritization for our next request, but maybe we should start thinking about some of that. So that's all I have, thank you.
Trustee Rice. Treasurer Rice.
That's
I'm
all
sorry, I
right.
was busy taking notes.
That's all right. So just to piggyback on something Mr. Gunning said, I want to thank him for that because, yes, Trustee Hauk is very passionate. And, you know, I didn't want to bring any names into it because, like I said, that wasn't the message. And I had a wonderful conversation with him and that, and, you know, things happen. And I think it's very admirable the way you, you know, sent an email out to them. And so thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
You're awesome.
Trustee Thering.
I'm good.
Trustee Bills.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Bill for bringing up the park idea again. I'm completely behind him on that. And I think we should be using some of our ARPA funds for that. It's infrastructure. It's a different kind of infrastructure, and I think it's allowed. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, if it isn't, I think we should start earmarking some general funds for it, and I agree. Second thing is, we, as trustees, now use electronic devices in the meeting. I have two. I have my laptop, and we had 4 or 5 or 6 different documents to reference back and forth today. I was using my phone to reference another document. Thank you. I don't care who doesn't want me to use my phone. It's an electronic device, and we have a lot of paperwork. The third thing is I agree, Trustee Hauk, I think we should definitely be looking at some community beneficial projects. That's what the tribe wants to see. That's what they communicated to us. Stuff that's inclusive of the community, which benefits everyone. And also, they wanted stuff that focused on, I don't know, health and welfare type stuff, you know. So, that's all I know. And I don't know much else because I reached out, as I told you, and I haven't heard word back on what they want, so, specifically, or, you know, I don't know. That's all I've got.
Trustee Brown.
Nothing tonight.
Made it quick.
Very quick.
On the, I'm going to respond to a couple things Trustee Hauk said. On the South End Park, in concept, I'm supportive of the idea. Where I have struggles is, I brought this idea up to the city, the county, tribe in 2 intergovernmental meetings ago, just the purpose to let them know that we were thinking this. And the reason I chose to bring that up at that meeting is I want to make sure we're not duplicating work, that the city's not planning on putting something similar at the south end of campus, because they're doing pathway stuff there too. And so I think if this board decides we really want to look at this further, I think we have a little homework to do to make sure that, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm saying let's make sure that this isn't duplicating something, that it also fits in with our community partners. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's where I've had the hesitation, if it,
What project are they working on? Can I ask?
yeah, they have in their plan, well, it's multi-part, but the part that would reference the south side is they are putting a pathway in, and I'll do my best, so hopefully I don't get this wrong. Is it Fights Park? What's the name of that?
Oh, Fights Woods?
White's Woods.
Fights Woods?
Yeah.
Oh,
Up into Chippewa Park.
Mhm.
And that will connect on Broomfield, as I understand it, maybe even, trying to remember if it goes farther than that. It may go farther, but at least, at the very least, from Broomfield up into Chippewa Park. So that, and the reason I was talking with them is I knew we were having similar discussions about pathways, and that where we're able to connect like that, that's a bonus for the community as a whole. And so we do have an intergovernmental meeting coming up, I think it's in March. March 7th. Oh, you're good, thank you. I guess with the board's permission.
Great staff right there.
top notch.
With the board's permission, if you'd like, Lisa and I can take that and bring that issue back to the forefront and get feedback from our, in particular, really, this would be the city of Mount Pleasant, right?
Yeah.
And what their plans are, what their execution is, and that what we're doing fits in with the overall trail system. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll plan on.
Extra
Very
awesome.
reasonable.
Okay. And then, this is an off-the-wall idea a little bit, but I thought of it as Trustee Houck was speaking about the 2%. When you and I went to that meeting, what I heard from the tribe was COVID-related stuff.
Yes.
Tough to help with COVID. And what that meant was kind of nebulous to me. I don't think they cared, other than they know that everybody's struggling with that, and how do we make our lives better together, right? Dealing with that. And the other thing was the environmental or general well-being, health, mental health of the world, that type of stuff was important. One of the things we've talked about as a board, as a goal, is to try to make this room work both virtual and in person.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if that would be a reasonable 2% or not. It doesn't help the community a whole lot, other than it makes us more accessible to the community.
I know other townships are doing that with their
Yeah, I know
ARPA
we are
funds.
too, so, with ARPA funds,
Yeah.
okay.
I read the MTA emails religiously, so I read all of that stuff.
What made me
I'm
think of it
sorry.
that we're all dealing, this is part of dealing with the COVID, the pandemic, right? That's why we're reacting to that to a certain degree. What we've found, which is, because there are blessings, I hate to say there's blessings of the pandemic because the number of lives have been lost, but we've learned to live differently, and some of those things are positive changes. And that includes what I think were virtual meetings. I think they have a place. And if our community can be accessible here, not have to make the trip in, it's a nice thing.
I like it.
And then last comment, I'm not going to say much. Bill, I appreciate your apology. That took a man of character to do that, so thank you. I will admit, I didn't speak to Bill this week. Bill even called me on Saturday, and I chose not to answer. I second-guessed that. But I'll be honest here, and I'm still upset. And maybe I'm still upset because I've been dealing with a lot of the fallout. But I agree 100% that Trustee Houck is very passionate for this township, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you standing up today. And for that, I just want to say thank you. Bill and I do need to talk. I just don't know if I'm quite ready yet.
I'm not either. To be honest with you, I think we both need to think about things.
Fair enough. And I don't like that situation, but I have spent a lot of time talking with planning commissioners. We'll leave it at that. And with that, if there's no other business from anybody,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Treasurer Rice,
Support.
support by Trustee Bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.